Hello, and welcome to the Overland Journal podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Giordano, and today I'm joined by our latest guest, Crystal Fong, a solo adventure motorcycle rider from San Francisco who left a career in architecture for life on the road in Europe and beyond. In this episode from the field, Crystal and I discuss the realities of solo travel, including how to navigate first steps, building a sense of community, and the power of simple acts of kindness from strangers. Here we go. We're on location in Morocco. I hope you enjoyed the episode.
And a special thanks to Real Truck for their support of this week's podcast. Find your freedom and follow your own trail in the fresh air of vast, uncharted places. Introducing the exclusive Real Truck lineup of overlanding accessories designed to take adventurous explorers like you into the furthest reaches with gear for camping, off-roading, and more, including the all-new Real Truck Go Rack, Go Tent, and Overland Awning. And here's to those inspired, self-actualized souls brave enough to unplug and check into pure wilderness. Bring your truck to life at realtruck.com. Thanks again, Real Truck.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me, Ashley.
Yay! So you're from the Bay Area of California originally?
I am born and raised, and I had my whole life there. You know, I did the thing in the society. I went to college. I worked in architecture for 10 years, and then I decided to do this huge motorcycle trip, and I've been on the road for 2.5 years. And
Wow.
I spent 2 years in Europe and almost 3 months in Morocco right now.
Nice. Wow. That's quite an adventure. How did you get into overlanding? So you were saying that you were in the Bay Area doing the thing that we do in life, and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm gonna ride a motorcycle around the world.
Yeah, I picked up riding motorcycles in my younger 20s. I got a license, and then I just commuted for 8 years. I didn't do any trips or anything. On the weekends, I would ride with friends. And then during COVID, I kind of stepped it up. And you know how it was dangerous to travel on a plane or with people. So I thought, oh, I could just be in my helmet, breathing my own air and traveling that way. So I did a few trips in the US. I rode from California to Yellowstone, California to Chicago, Illinois, and then from California to Baja, Mexico. And once I did all of those three, I was like, what is the next logical step? And I decided to ride Europe. And then it escalated to, let's try to ride every country in Europe.
It's like that little, the steps, the progressive steps.
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. And what did you start on?
I started on a Kawasaki Ninja 250, and then I totaled that, and then I upgraded to a 300. Not much of an upgrade, but still a little bit more in CC. And the bike I'm riding now in Europe, Morocco, is a 1990 Honda Dominator 250. So I do like the lighter bikes.
Nice. Yeah. I think I read somewhere that you had been riding pillion with a friend, and that's how you decided to start riding solo. Is that right?
That's right. That was my very first ride. I think I was 20 years old, and I was wearing this cotton hoodie, a helmet that was too big for my head, and Nike Dunks and jeans, which is just not appropriate riding gear for what we were doing. And so we would do wheelies and endos and go 160 miles per hour. And that made me really nervous in the back because I had absolutely no control. So that's why I decided to get my own license and my own bike.
Good call. Good call. Wow. So you did all the training and started to do little trips. Mm-hmm. Nice. And then
I took
decided
the MSF course. Yeah, I took the MSF course. That's the first step. It's like the Motorcycle Safety Foundation course, and it's over the course of a weekend, I think. Like Friday is the instructional, educational, like textbook learning, and then Saturday, Sunday, you learn how to ride a bike. It's really fast.
Wow. Okay. So then you obviously had more experience in the US. And what made you decide to go over to Europe to travel?
I wanted to backpack Europe when I was younger, but I never did it. I got caught up in like the corporate rat race, which is fine. And then after about 10 years working, I decided, oh, can I work 40 more years until retirement? And the answer was no. Like, that's another lifetime. So I decided to kind of package up my life, sell anything expensive. I sold my car, and I just started focusing on planning this trip. And the first step was like finding a bike. The second step was buying a plane ticket. And after I had those two things nailed down, like I didn't have any excuse. Like I was going.
Nice. And what were you doing for work before you left?
I was in architecture.
Nice. What kind of architecture work were you doing? Like what
I
I guess there's
did
probably a specialty.
retail, office. Oh, yes, there's a lot of industries you can go in, but I focused on retail, warehousing, office space, coffee shops, restaurants, tenant improvement projects.
Nice. Okay. So you go to Europe. What did the first 24 hours look like? This is your international experience on a motorcycle traveling alone.
Well, the first week I was jet lagged, so I didn't do much riding that first week. I allowed myself that time to just recover before I hit the road. But once I got my bike and I learned how to, put on panniers and pack, I never rode with that much weight before. And so I was so scared I couldn't even turn my head and look over my shoulder to change lanes. Like I would just wait until I think I heard nothing and then I would change lanes. But once I got more brave, it was just the most exhilarating feeling because I didn't know what I was doing. I just left behind my entire life and was in a continent that I didn't know anyone. And so it was, I would say, equally liberating, but scary.
Yeah, which country did you start in and how did you get your bike there?
I started in Croatia. I actually didn't ship my bike over by boat. I found a bike in Croatia, and this guy, he buys bikes for foreigners and kind of rents them long term to us.
Oh, okay. Nice. That's a really good option if you don't
Hmm.
want to ship your bike or fly it, or it's a lot of probably save some money and some time and logistics there.
Hmm. Yeah, it's actually pretty expensive to put your bike on a boat. I want to say it's like, I don't know, 2K one way. And I
Mm.
think flying your bike over is probably about 1.5K to 2K one
Hmm.
way as well. So
Okay.
I didn't really see an end in sight when I first started. So I wasn't thinking about the way back. So I just found a bike in Europe and was committed to it.
Nice. Did you find that Croatia was a good place to start for you?
I think it was a good place. It was definitely a culture shock because, I mean, you have to relearn everything. Like, nothing's in English. Uh,
Mhm.
Croatian is the language they speak. So there's just a lot of, it's relearning how to do the things you already know how to do, even like grocery shopping or where to find an ATM or bank. Like, for example, like if I ask someone for an ATM in Croatia, they wouldn't know what I'm talking about. You have to ask for a bankomat. Like little things like that, you just have to figure out. And so I think it was challenging starting in a non-English speaking country, but it probably like just helped me ramp up for the unfamiliar of what was to come.
Yeah, because you're almost adjusting like that in every country that you go to in a way, right? You're relearning all of the things,
Mm-hmm.
where to get laundry done, where to go grocery shopping, where to find a bank machine, and it's different in a lot of places. So you're like constantly relearning.
Absolutely. Like, in the US, you can have a cell phone, and even if you cross into another state, it still works. That's not what it's like in Europe. Maybe within the EU, but like a lot of the Balkans, they're all separate countries. So I didn't know that. So a lot of times I would just be stranded, like right when I crossed the border, not having like downloaded offline Google Maps or anything, and just trying to follow this blue dot of where to go next. And all these little things you just have to learn through experience and mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah, you sometimes learn more from mistakes than you do from doing things right, you know? You're like, I'll learn that once.
Yeah, you don't want to make the same mistake twice or be stranded at the border at 9 p.m.
Yeah. Did that happen?
That happened to me. I was crossing the border from Bosnia Herzegovina to Serbia, and I didn't download offline maps, and I had like a reservation with a couch surfing host. And so I'm at this little village town right at the border, figuring out what to do. Like everything's closed already. And there are a group of probably like 10 teenager, younger 20, like aged kids. And they're like revving motorcycles. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope they don't approach me because there's like 10 or 15 of them and there's like only me. I hope they don't like want any trouble. And I'm just like trying to fiddle on my phone, figure out like which direction to go. And then one of them approaches me and I'm like, oh my gosh, Crystal, this is what all your friends like warned you about. And then he speaks in broken English, like, do you need help? And the blood just like rushed back into my body, like, oh my gosh, like, yes, I need help.
Yeah, how has that been, I guess, in the beginning, like working through that fear? Because I think when you're on your own, um, and I'm speaking from like 2 weeks of experience of traveling on my own, so not very long, and I'm still working through it. And it has been really interesting and eye opening. But I think it's like the trust level, when you're around strangers and you're by yourself and it's only you. And I know this is different for everybody because I think a lot of people have, they give and receive, trust more easily maybe than others. And feeling that vulnerability because you know that you're on your own. How was that experience and that transition from living in the Bay Area and you know where you're going and what you're doing and you're not in a situation where you're a vulnerable traveler by yourself, or you feel vulnerable anyway?
The transition happens without you realizing it. Like if you're in your home state or country, you speak the same language, your guard is down. But then once you're in a place where you're by yourself and you're in a country or place where you don't speak the language, you don't know how things work, your body just adjusts to being like hyper alert, especially as a female. And you have to learn, you have to quickly identify whether a situation or a person is a threat, or if it's not going to be anything. And so you don't realize how exhausted this makes your body because you're just trying to survive day to day, just trying to get from one place to another or eat a meal without bad things happening to you. And I just kind of get used to the high stress. And I don't realize, I realized it now after doing it for so long, because I actually went home for a month to visit my cousin. And I slept so deep the first week. And I was like, I don't usually sleep this deep. Usually like when I'm in my tent or I'm in my hostel. I wake up to every single sound just in case, because you just never know. And that's just the type of alertness that I go through.
Yeah, I would say being a newbie, also, my sleep has definitely not been great. And I am definitely, I can feel my nervous system on alert as well. Just even, you're more aware of what's going on and you're scanning your surroundings, even if you're not doing it consciously, it's always kind of in the back of your head. And I don't feel like, everybody's out to
Mm-hmm.
get me. I don't feel that way, but I do feel like I have a different level of, like you said, alertness for sure. And I think, I don't know if this is the same for
Mm-hmm.
you, but evenings and night times are harder than daytime.
Oh, absolutely. Um,
Okay, cool. Good to know.
you're not the only one. I mean, that's just like general traveler safety, right? Like, you don't go wandering in like dark alleys by yourself in the middle of the night. Not that anything will happen, but things are more prone to happen at night where there's less people watching or walking around. And you kind of just try to avoid those situations if you're traveling alone.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Have you found the way that you travel is different from the way that you are back at home if you're surrounded by friends or family in terms of, I guess, how you are in the world? Like I'm finding I'm like trying to keep busier, kind of like get involved or get in reach out to people more often and feel like kind of more of a sense of community around me maybe when I'm traveling on my own.
I know exactly what you're saying. Back at home, I formed community as well. So it's also something I'm seeking out here. And even if I'm staying in a place for a day, like I'm still looking for something familiar, whether that's another motorcycle rider or another solo traveler or like anything to grasp onto. And so this is funny. So I play badminton and I bring my badminton racket with me, like on my motorcycle. And so the way I form community is through motorcycle people and badminton people. So I will find a gym wherever I'm traveling and whatever country I'm riding through. And that's where I find my community. So, and it just feels like home. Like when you have like something in common, like even though you don't speak the same language, like we don't keep score in the same language, but you just know that you're just there to have fun and like interact with people. So I know what you mean by forming community, even with your when you're by yourself.
What are some of the best badminton experiences you've had?
Oh, this is kind of cute. Okay, so I'm in Tamrat right now, and there's a gym in Agadir. So usually, like, I'm always just like blasting through places. The most I'll stay in a place is a week. I found a gym here. I made a friend, and he's like really hungry to learn. They don't have like a proper coach. There's not a lot of resources or like even proper gyms out here. I've been training him for a month.
That's amazing. Very
Yes,
cool.
so I meet him like 3 to 4 times a week, and I just feed him birds, and I like teach him like proper footwork or like proper way to hold the racket and all this stuff, and it's really cute. Like we're just it's like this energy exchange of like cultures, and our baseline is badminton.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's like what do you have in common with people and these activities bring you together to feel a sense of community and belonging. And I think I read something that you wrote about being alone versus loneliness and the difference between those two.
Yeah. Um, People ask me all the time, like, aren't you lonely? And I'm like, no, I never feel lonely. I'm alone. Like, I'm traveling by myself. It's just me and my bike. But loneliness, I feel like, is like when you kind of feel empty or you're craving something, whether that's, companionship of a pet or like a friend. And I just don't feel that. Um, People come up to me every day when I'm riding and they ask what in the world am I doing there by myself with all this like stuff on my bike. And I also like look for community. So I'm like, people are finding me and I'm looking for my people like out in the world. So I don't feel like I don't have time to like feel lonely. Like even if I'm not doing anything, I'm reading or I'm stretching or I'm working out. Like I'm very focused on like just being like the best version of myself in every aspect. And so I just don't have time for that. There are moments I could count on my fingers um, where I did feel lonely though. There was, this was a really hard few days. I was in Prague in the Czech Republic. Oh my gosh, someone tried to steal my bike. My hostel kicked me out or kicked my bike out because the thieves like pulled my fuel line and like gas leaked everywhere on the front door. And so my hostel kicked my bike out and then I had to get a root canal. But like I was there when Prague was on a 2-day holiday, so everything was closed. And I couldn't like call anyone because I didn't speak the language. And then I asked this man on the street if I could use his phone and if he could help me like call a dental office, and he told me no. And so like all these things happening, like I was just that was one of those times where I felt absolutely despairingly alone and lonely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When it rains, it pours.
Yeah, it does. But I found help, and the next place I went into, I got a smoothie to try to make my teeth feel better. And this woman, she helped me call like dental offices and then schedule an appointment. And then when I told my badminton, I played badminton in Prague too. When I told like the owners of that gym what happened, they're like, come sleep on our couch, like just until you recover and like go back out there on your journey. And they like nursed me back to health for a week.
Wow.
So like those things happen, but then like they're like offset by even greater good, like every single time.
For sure. I think too, when you're on your own, you're so much more grateful for all the little things. In terms of people reaching out to you or including you or inviting you or zipping up the back of your wetsuit or, helping you with a surfboard, or I could, all these little things. Yeah. How do you feel like this experience has changed you in that way?
Man, when you live on the road on a bike that can't carry much, you're literally grateful for anything. Like, I'm grateful for when it's not windy, so I don't have like a rough night's sleep, or like all those little things you mentioned. Like, they're just, they're like exponential. Like, it's not just people doing small acts of kindness for you, it's people caring about you. Like when you're
Yeah.
traveling by yourself, you're super highly independent, you're self-reliant, and when someone invites you into their home to cook you a warm meal so you don't have to, eat food out of a can or something, like I've like cried so many times from those experiences, because when you care for yourself, it's one thing, but when people care about you and take the time to like show love to you, it just melts you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it's the beautiful thing. That's a scenario that you don't understand necessarily if you are um, going about your life in the daily way, I guess. That's normal. I don't think about those experiences like a commute on the way to or from work or going to the park or going wherever. This is very specific to this experience as well. I think I can relate to that. All the little things are actually really big.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've talked to my friends about this. Like when you live in society, I would say life is not as hard. You're not pushed through major challenges every day. I mean, there's different challenges, but you're not trying to. It's just harder in different ways. Like you're not worried about where you're going to sleep or if you're going to eat or like if the rainstorm is going to leak through your tent or if your only mode of transportation is going to be there in the morning because it might be stolen. Like everything, every little thing you have to worry about, but there's a certain comfort in society that you just don't have to think about these things. And so you kind of take things for granted.
Yeah, for sure. I would say it's really interesting too on that same topic that like I'm traveling with my husband most of the time and we've been together since I was 19. So like quite a while without giving away my age. But I've never traveled on my own before. And so actually a lot of the things that he's been doing, I have been taking for granted. And now I have to do those things on my own, which is cool. I like it. But it's also like, I appreciate it and will appreciate it so much more when he gets back. So yeah, it makes a big difference for sure. I wanted to ask you about sleeping in a tent and what that experience is like on your own and how you decide where to pitch your tent and how you kind of deal with feeling safe, maybe.
I use the app Park for Night, which is like a kind of like an overlanding RV app where you could park in parking lots or you can go like off in the middle of nowhere. And so sometimes I use that. Sometimes I go off into my own. This might sound weird. I camp in places that I think are funny sometimes. So I think it'll be funny to, I've done all this, like camp under a bridge like a troll. I've done that in Bulgaria. Or I've slept in front of a grocery store in Italy. I thought that was very ridiculous, so why not? And I've slept in a lot of like parking lots in Ireland. I don't know why I'm like this. I just think it's funny to be able to say I slept in the zoo parking lot. But I also like to go like way out where there's absolutely no one. And that gives me a better night's sleep because I know there's not going to be someone walking by or like cars or anything that'll happen to me. It'll just be animals. So I never get a good night's sleep sleeping in a tent. I'm just going to be honest. I have a lot of fear. Like, something might happen to me or someone's going to steal my bike. Like everything runs through my mind. And at first I didn't sleep with earplugs because I wanted, to hear every single sound just in case. And then I have, a bit of anxiety. So I would like ruminate throughout the night and just like all these thoughts like, oh my gosh, what was that like snap of a twig? Like, and it would just keep me up for 2 hours. And I was just like, I can't do this. So I just put my earplugs in and I just hope I wake up in the morning with every limb attached to me. So I just do it with fear.
And a quick announcement of our new Tires for Overlanding educational series that is going to be brought to the Expedition Portal YouTube channel. This is a 6-part series that is going to be released over the months of May and June, and it features detailed insights on mud tires, all-terrains, airing down, driving in sand, vehicle preparation, tread lightly, and more. And we're grateful to Hankook Tire for helping to support this new series. So take a look at the Expedition Portal YouTube channel for more details.
Nice. Yeah. Sometimes you're just like, I'm going to put these in and whatever happens is beyond my control. Other than listening to all the little noises and what's that branch snapping, like what wildlife is coming to get me, or is there a person passing by or a monkey or whatever.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, Crystal, tell me a little bit about your route. So, you started in Croatia, and where did you go from there?
I'm not going to name every country because I've been through 40 of them, but
Fair.
in general, I started in Southern Europe, where the Balkans are, where Croatia, Serbia, Greece are, and then I headed up to Central Eastern Europe. I did like Switzerland, Poland, and then I went up to the Baltics, where like Lithuania and Estonia are. Then I went over to the Scandinavias. Took a ferry from Estonia to Finland, Finland to Sweden, and then I made my way to the UK. I took the Eurotunnel from Calais, France to Folkestone, England, and then I covered Scotland, Ireland, and then I finally finished in southwestern Europe, where Spain, Italy, France are. And I took the ferry from Tarifa, Spain, to Tangier, Morocco, where I've been exploring Morocco a bit.
How have you been navigating the Schengen rules of having to only spend 90 out of 180 days in most of the European Union?
Navigating the Schengen visa as a long-term traveler is like trying to figure out a puzzle. Luckily, the Balkans is a pretty big chunk of countries that you can exit out in, and so is the UK. So I would do, well, now Croatia's in the Schengen, but I would go through the Balkans, exit or enter into Greece for 3 months, exit out into the Balkans, and then I think my second leg into the Schengen, I did 17 countries in 90 days, which is a lot. And so that is just not enough time to, take your time and embrace every country. So it's kind of like a sprint for me to do that. And then I would exit out into the UK. American citizens get 6 months in England, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we get the same as Canadians.
Yeah. So you could reset. Mm-hmm. There's a fly. So you could reset it that way. And then I think I had like 11 or 13 countries to do left. Belgium, Luxembourg, that chunk. So that was another sprint before I could exit out into Morocco and reset the Schengen that way as well. I didn't want to deal with, trying to figure out long-term visas of getting a volunteer or visa or schooling or work. Like I just did the hop in, hop out thing.
Yeah. And Morocco is a good place as well, as you were saying, to come into. It's easily accessible via Spain. How's your time been here?
It's been interesting. Morocco is definitely a different world. Things are very different here. How would I describe that? It's kind of taking a step back in time where there's a lot of old world going on. Like some people still like use donkeys as the main mode of transportation. A lot of these cities have like old Medinas built hundreds and thousands of years ago that are like they're not cobblestone, but like really big stones that are not like asphalt or concrete, and it just feels very like otherworldly.
Yeah, there is a sense of trying to figure out how to explain it. It's like certain places in Morocco you feel like you could be there at any point in time. Like it could be the 1920s and you could be coming in. You're just looking around, seeing, and it feels like you're looking at the same things that a traveler would at that point, or the 1950s, or, I felt that kind of sense of timelessness in some areas for sure. And then there's, a lot of modern.
That's a good word.
Modern, I don't know, that's the right word. Let's say, you can pay with Visa. let's say, in some areas, and fast Wi-Fi in some places, and yeah, there's kind of a range of everything.
It's very interesting. Sometimes there's a huge contrast. Like I was riding through like up in the mountains past Todga Gorge, and some of these I will call them villages, where it's just super dusty and there's no paved road, and I just see like a giant solar panel, and
Oh
it kind of just
yeah.
blows my mind because of the stark contrast in like technology. Like some of these houses just have one light bulb in the entire room, and there's like not much decoration, and so seeing like a solar panel that huge, like it was just it was a weird like where am I moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a huge solar. I think I know which one you're talking about. It's like you can see the glare from the road, and it's quite far away. Or I've also seen little solar panels that people will have just in the middle of the desert somewhere. They're little mini solar panels. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of sun here, so take advantage of it, right? But yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
How has it been traveling in Morocco as a woman?
It's interesting. I didn't know exactly too much about Muslim culture before I came here. I just knew like you're supposed to cover up, and that was kind of the only rule I told myself in my head. And like as you learn and you speak to locals, you learn more about their culture. And the media portrays Morocco or Muslim culture a certain way, and it tends to be very negative. I would say like staying with a lot of families who invited me into their homes. It's I can see why it's portrayed that way, but that's not the only way, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say foreigners are treated very differently than local Moroccan women. Like we have, I'm going to call it protection in a way where the police or government don't want anything bad to happen to us. And so, or else that produces a lot of bad press. And
Tourism is
it's
huge.
not like, and it's not like I do things to take advantage of it, but I know that I have that layer of protection where if I call the police or if something happens, they will protect me. So I feel very safe here. There's just a fly.
Yeah, all the police that we've passed through at checkpoints and everything have been very professional, and yeah, definitely more so than some of the Central American countries. I mean, that was a decade ago for us, but it feels like they've been really professional here. But yeah,
That's good to hear.
so far so good. But yeah, yeah, good to know. Good to know. What have some of the highlights been for you? I guess in Morocco. Let's get specific.
I got adopted by this family for a month, and they didn't speak any English, so we used Google Translate to talk the entire month.
Oh wow.
Like I was riding through it was kind of a crazy experience. Like I was riding through the village of Kareya Bay Mohammed, and I was just doing one of my late night rides. I was going to grab a snack, shove it in my mouth, and just keep going. And at this sandwich shop, there were a bunch of like younger teenagers, and I'm trying to talk to them, but like I don't speak Arabic or Darija, and they don't speak English. But we kind of like went around like, how old are you? And you can kind of be like, I'm 9 years old, and just like have that type of interaction with them. And so I'm just asking all these kids like, how old are you? And then after like we're done eating, one of the younger teenage girls is like, do you want to come home with me and stay with us? And I'm like, oh, quick analyzation. There's a teenage daughter in the house. I'm safe. Okay, let's go. So I like push my bike to her dad's shop, and he's kind of like, what's going on here? And she like talks to her dad in Arabic. I think she's saying like, oh, we met at the sandwich shop. Like, can she stay with us? And of course, he's not going to say no to me. Like, and like turn me away like at like 9 p.m. at night. And so he says yes. I was just going to stay with them for 2 days. I ended up staying with them for an entire month. I would go to the weekly souk with their mom and like walk like arms linked and like carry all her groceries back, and like any aunties that she saw along the way that were struggling with their groceries, I would carry them back. And it was just like our weekly thing. And it was like I was learning Arabic, and I was teaching them English too, and it was just like this accidental culture exchange. Like that's just one of my favorite memories.
Mm-hmm. What was your takeaway from that experience?
People are very kind to travelers and will take you in without asking for anything in return. Like there are times where I tried to pay for groceries or like snacks or whatever, and they like just refused. Like it was offensive to them. And it was just like life is very hard in Morocco, you know, like there's a lot of poverty around and people don't have a lot of money. And so when people with the absolute least give so much to you and don't want anything in return and like even refuse your money, like that shows you how good of a people they are.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like,
yeah.
And I kind of asked myself, like, would I do the same thing if I'm in the US and like I see a traveler coming by? Like, would I invite them into my house for a month and not ask for anything? I don't know.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I've been following you on Instagram and following all your stories, and you had you have an eye infection in Morocco. She's laughing. And that seemed like
that was such
an experience.
It was such a terrible experience. Okay, so this is my second abscess in my life, so maybe I will develop a pattern of them in my life. Who knows? But a pimple, there was a small pimple here. I just like scratched it off, and then it got infected, and it became this huge bulbous red thing on my face where every time I like would swing my head, it felt like a gravitational pull. And you know, I tried homeopathic methods like icing or heating or putting a tea bag. None of that helped. And I discovered what it was like to be a patient in the Moroccan hospital system, and it's an absolute nightmare. It was such a headache. Like, thank goodness, one of the daughters of that family that adopted me, she accompanied me through the whole thing because none of these doctors spoke like English. Like they speak French, which a lot of travelers here do, but I don't. And so I went to the first hospital. They looked at it. They told me, this needs to be cut open, like drained. But they didn't do that there because their specialty is not the face and the neck. I have to go to a second hospital. So I taxied to the second hospital, and these optometrist, I think, she was like on her phone, like, with all this bacteria. And she like opened up my eye with her like cell phone finger phone. And I was like, oh my God, my immune system is going to get even better after this. And she started berating me, like, why didn't I come here sooner? And I'm just like, I thought I was like taking care of it. And she's like, you need to go to this third hospital and like get this looked at because I've never dealt with this before. And I was like, like this is all through like from my friend like translating everything to me.
Yeah.
It was such a headache. I go to the third hospital, and I complain about the U.S. healthcare system, but things are a lot better there. Like, for example, at this third hospital, you have to go pay and then deliver your receipt to a second building, and then they have to give you permission. You go back to this first building, and then you deliver some paperwork to some third building, like in the dark. And you're basically running around this paperwork because there's not a central electronic computer system.
Right.
And I can't imagine how someone with like a real injury, like who can't walk or see, like can do this by themselves. And I mean, I could go on about this. It was just an absolute headache. In the end, they just gave me allergy medicine and told me like just to eat this and it'll go away on its own. Surprise, it didn't. And I was in a bathroom where it like ruptured on its own and all this ooze was like dripping down my face. And 3 nurses came in and were like, "We saw you running in here. Do you need help?" And usually like I would be like, "No, I can do this." But I'm just, I have like pus and blood oozing on my face. And I'm like, I think I need help this time. And they're like, "We're nurses. We know what we're doing." And they just helped me drain this thing for like 30 minutes. And they like,
Wow.
disinfected it for me and like patched me up.
The timing of that, can you imagine like the forces of the universe that came together to have 3 nurses in the vicinity to help you out with that is pretty amazing. Yeah. Wow.
It's crazy. Like it was perfect timing. Like the chances are like 1 in a million.
Again, yeah, the kindness of strangers.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like the overall
I've been so lucky.
lesson, I guess. Timing is everything. What
Absolutely.
advice would you give to somebody that is embarking on a solo trip that has never gone on one before? Or things maybe that you are like, you know what, you just be prepared for XYZ.
Ooh, that's hard. Well, first I would say take a test solo journey. Like maybe don't go for a few months before you've even done one. Maybe go for a weekend or a week to see if you even like it. That would be my first advice. The second is, this is kind of sad. If I didn't realize this would be a side effect of traveling solo away from home for so long, but just know that you will be distanced emotionally in closeness from your friends and family back home. Yeah. I didn't realize this would be a side effect. You're in a different time zone, you're living your own wild solo life, and everyone else is in society, like working, living their 9 to 5, paying bills, and so your lives just like split like this. It's hard for me to relate to my friends from home much anymore because even though I did live that life, I can't relate. I have a completely different life, and keeping in touch is very difficult because there's time zone differences. Some people are at work, people are tired, whatever the reason, and you're going to be forgotten sometimes, and it's just like a harsh reality of it. So
that's good advice.
Like I think that's something like I don't think people talk about because you just see the glory of solo travel. You see all the pictures, you see all the cool places, like, and that is part of it. But there's also like this part where you do want to share it with someone, but they're sleeping, or that's just not their concern right now.
For sure. Yeah.
They're just
the
trying to survive.
Yes. Yeah. Relationships definitely change. I think every traveler that I've spoken to has had that experience. And it's often sometimes surprising who checks in. It's not necessarily who you think it's going to be. Yeah. Yeah. It's sometimes people that you don't expect are like, hey, how are you doing? I had that happen recently, like during the first week that I was traveling on my own. And I've had people check in that were like, how are you doing? This must be hard for you. This is a really hard situation to be in for the first week. And I'm like, wow. It goes back to that thing again that we were talking about earlier, that these little acts of kindness are actually not little. They're a lot bigger and you appreciate them so much. And yeah, they're not necessarily coming from who you expect. So yeah, it's like other relationships will grow and others will change and some will die, unfortunately. But
Yeah, I know what you mean by sometimes the people you don't expect to reach out will reach out, which is very interesting sometimes. But I told myself, like, I will foster these relationships if and when I go back, but I shouldn't, fault me or anyone that they're not flourishing right now. Like, there's a lot of factors at play, and they can resume when I go back.
totally. Yeah. Yeah. It's a healthy way of looking at it for sure. That's what change does, right? Big change.
Oh, that's another thing. Like, you grow exponentially when you're by yourself, if you choose to. Because when you're outside of where you grew up or what your constant friend group or social circle is, you do this without knowing. You kind of behave in ways that fit in society or how people see you. But when you're by yourself, you kind of, the restraints are loose. Nobody knows you. You can do something that you wouldn't normally do because of that opportunity has come up, and which would not come up in society. And so you're pushed to these boundaries that you didn't even know existed. Like, how do I explain this?
You're like, I'm going to pitch my tent in front of a grocery store.
Like, you're encountered with situations which you would not living in society, and you're like, you just question yourself, like, why not? This isn't hurting anyone. Let's just see what happens. And so when you have that like curious growth mindset, and you're facing and solving all these problems by yourself because there's just no one else around, like, your growth just spikes. And that's also like a side effect of traveling by yourself.
Do you feel more confident?
Yes. I would say I was confident before, but I wouldn't say as versatile. Like, I have been through so many random situations that weren't necessarily dangerous, but just kind of test like your boundaries, and like, and they're not like dangerous boundaries. They could be like, well, how long don't I have to shower for, or like, how little do I have to eat today, or what strange new food can I eat to survive? And it's just like when you take these like tiny steps every day of like the unfamiliar, when you look back like 6 months, you're out here and you're looking back like, oh, I was here, and you can clearly see through your own growth, through your own taste, through even photos. Like, when I look back at photos of myself, I'm like, I was so green even a few months ago. Like, I didn't know anything about Morocco, but now look, I'm surviving here.
Yeah, it is. It's always a good idea to celebrate those milestones or those experiences by looking back like that and seeing the growth instead of, we can get very like forward thinking and kind of beating ourselves up over what we haven't done or haven't accomplished or haven't gotten yet. But looking backwards is always like, wow, look how far I've come. Look what I know now. Look how many words in Moroccan Arabic I know. That's more than I did when I got here, you know? So yeah, that's insightful. But yeah. Crystal, I have a question for you. What is your favorite book?
My favorite book? I have a list of all the books I've read, maybe the last 10 years after college when I started reading for fun.
Yeah.
And this book really changed my perspective. The Books of Great Alta by Jane Yolen.
Hmm.
Have you heard of it?
No, what is it about?
So, so I think I read this in like 2021 or something. And this was when, okay, there's a little background to this. COVID, everything was shut down. You were stuck inside your house for like a year. You couldn't go to the gym. You couldn't see your friends. That made me literally have a mental breakdown because all my hobbies are outside and with friends. Going to the gym to play badminton, going to the gym to lift weights, seeing all my friends. Couldn't do any of that, and so that made me deal with my inside stuff, my dark stuff, and it was really, really hard for me. But this book, The Books of Great Alta, it's not particularly famous or anything, but this author writes, it's like a fiction, kind of like sorcery type of book, where it talks about how these sisters with powers that kind of protect like each other. There's a light sister and a dark sister, and so like the dark sister you would assume is like the evil one, the one causing mischief and stuff. But it's like a balance of the two. And so like the light sister exists both in the day and the nighttime, and the dark sister only comes out in the shadows and at night. And so that just reframed everything for me. It reframed me to think that I can use, maybe the things I don't love about myself, like the darkness, into something positive. For example, like I can be stubborn, I can be angry, but those things allow me to speak up sometimes when I do have those feelings. Like those things push me into action when I feel something is not right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like every negative fault I don't like about myself, there's always like some benefit to it. And so that book helped me change my mindset so much.
Wow. Yeah, being stubborn is a pretty good trait to get you out onto the road, motorcycling around the world. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, it's like persistence and resilience, and how long can you go for even though it's painful or it's not like the most enjoyable time. Like that's an important skill.
Yeah. And working through that, working through those emotions, working through not beating yourself up for feeling a certain way, or finding out what do you do for fun. I think that's another thing that I've had to look into recently, being by myself. I'm like, Ashley, what do you do for fun? Why are you so intense? Like, what do you want to do? And what can you do to have fun once in a while? And certain personality types, I think, I'm very like, have to do things like this and get work done, and very like studious and can be too serious. So finding the things that are fun, even for just like half an hour, even just for 10 minutes, those sometimes really helpful. And for you, it sounds like that's badminton. So yeah, what's fun when
Yeah, I
things get
think
too serious?
play is very important. Mm-hmm. Like I think there's a time for being serious and getting things done, but I think like our inner spirit also needs time to like play and like laugh and like just be silly sometimes. So that's
Mm-hmm.
important you realize that.
Yeah, yeah, and sometimes it takes a little bit of structure to make that happen, but I think it's good. It's a good thing. Yeah. So speaking of
Mm-hmm.
fun, what's next for you? So you're in Morocco for now. Do you have a grand scheme? Are you heading back north? What's up for the next phase?
Before I left on this trip, I told myself I was going to do the Europe and the Middle East. So I'm actually just using Morocco to reset my Schengen and a place to rest before I head to the Middle East. So that is the next chapter.
Nice. So how are you going to get there? Do you know yet? Fly, drive?
I think I will definitely ride. I'm not leaving my bike alone. She's like connected to me. I will probably take a series of ferries. I don't want to ride that entire length again. Like I've already done it. I'm a bit over Europe at this point. So I'll probably just try to get there as fast as I can, maybe visit a few friends along the way in those countries. But Turkey will be my entryway. I'm really excited about that.
Nice. Fantastic. Well, I can't wait to follow along on your journey. I have been definitely watching your stories on Instagram and reading your posts to see where you're at. And I'm glad that our paths have crossed. But where can everybody find you online?
The easiest place is through Instagram, chasing.crystal. And I also have a blog, chasingcrystal.com as well.
Awesome. Yeah, you're posting pretty regular updates on there. It's been really fun to follow your journey. And we've crossed paths like 2 ships in the night a few times where you've left one campsite one day and I've been there like the next day. So we'll have to make it happen in person one day. Maybe it'll be in Turkey. Who knows? But yeah.
That would be cool.
Good stuff. Well, thank you so much, Crystal, for being a guest on the Overland Journal podcast and chatting all about solo travel and motorcycle travel and your experiences on the road so far. And I wish you all the best and a safe journey going forward. So thank you.
Thank you for your time, Ashley, and I wish you safe travel as well.
Thank you. And special shout out to the Overland Journal podcast listeners for tuning in to another episode. We appreciate having you around and having your feedback on these episodes. So thank you so much, and we will catch you next time.